I've been trying to collect my thoughts about people's personal sense of humour for about 5 videos now. I ran out of time on a couple of them with the diddles. And I suppose it's best to just start from where I got the idea to talk about it and then continue on to how I try and deal with my own personal sense of humour and desperately try to stay away from the big issues, because I think this should be a more personal thing. It would be quite a while ago now, over 10 years. I was at work and I was skiving off on Facebook, as many of us do. And I came across a post on Facebook about a young lass. I think she was 15 or 16. She was Australian and she'd just been to the North Pole, then planned to go to the South Pole, and did a TED talk in between about going to the South Pole. And she got a bit of Mickey off some laddos on the I assume the YouTube site for the TED talk in the comments, and they were going on like laddos, make me a sandwich, and other witticisms that they must have been up half the night thinking of. Well, anyway, she had a magnificent response. She basically just ignored them until she got to the South Pole, and then she made the aforementioned sandwich, which I believe was ham and cheese on brown bread, and posed for it next to the South Pole, the actual pole. I don't know how many people didn't know this, but I was one of them that, before I saw that picture, I didn't know they had this bloody great Barba's pole at the South Pole. And I'm still trying to work out who thought it was a good idea to put it there, but I suppose you don't want your picture taken in the wrong place, do you? Anyway, so this was great. I mean, well done getting to the South Pole. Even better at doing both poles. Everybody in the comments thought she was great, and I decided to leave a comment, but me being like the jaded old cunt that I am, sort of, rather than just outwardly praise her, I just left a daft comment. I said, well, I mean, I suppose the sandwich would keep a while. It's very cold down there. Did you leave a tin of pop with it? For the Americans amongst us, that's a can of soda. And the stink, this kicked off, this innocuous comment. I think it took a week to die down. I swear to Christ, I've never seen anything so ridiculous in my life. And through that, it got me to thinking about jokes. With jokes, it does good to be overly sensitive when people are telling jokes. If you don't like a joke, or rather I should say, because I don't want to make this preachy, I just want to say how I do it. I don't want to tell others how they should do it. If I don't like a joke, I just don't laugh. I don't rant and rave and say it's a bad joke, it's a insensitive joke, how dare you. I got all of that on that South Pole joke, the sandwich joke, cheese and ham gate, we might call it. I was called all sorts. I was called disrespectful, I was called misogynistic. It was an absolute clusterfuck. Now, people might think that this means that I'll just laugh at anything. I don't think anybody laughs at anything. I saw a meme last month. That would be September, because we're in the crux of November now. But September the 11th, obviously somebody decided to put a meme up about the Twin Towers, and the joke was he'd superimposed the Death Star in the back, shooting a laser through them. And I did see that one person in the comments didn't find it funny and said it wasn't funny and that it should be taken down. Now, I don't find jokes about 9/11 funny. I would never tell anybody not to crack them though. I had to think about it because it was an event that happened when I was an adult. I was in my early 20s, and I remember it happening the very moment it happened. I remember I was on a night shift, so I was in bed, and my brother was watching the news, and he shouted for me to come downstairs and look at the news, and I thought the place was on fire or something, so I threw myself out of bed and ran downstairs, and I was looking at the television. I'm like, what's all this? He goes, somebody's flown a plane into the trade towers. I'm like, oh shit. And I think what a lot of people got to remember is some people might find that funny because they weren't old enough to watch it on the news. It was 20 years ago now, and it's 20 years ago now, so anybody who's like under 25 or 27 or so, something like that, it's not going to have the same emotional impact on them. So it's going to be an item of joke, and they say, well, how can you joke about people dying? But we crack jokes about the Second World War, and I've cracked plenty of Second World War Nazi jokes and what have you. So I think it helps to not to be too judgmental about why somebody else would find something funny, because if you were in their shoes, you might find it funny. If I heard about a disaster that didn't happen in my lifetime, that hadn't directly affected anybody currently alive or very few people, it suddenly becomes funnier. There's nobody weeping and wailing about Genghis Khan setting had half of Europe, is there? I mean, take the Titanic for instance. People make joke pictures of it. People crack jokes. Nobody kicks off when people mention the Titanic, even though it was a terrible disaster. It's because it was years ago and nobody's really that invested in it anymore. There might be a few grandkids whose grandparents, drowned on it and all that, but generally you can get away with a Titanic joke, and it'll be the same with the trade tower jokes. I do recall years ago, it will be a good long while ago. Don't ask us how long ago, but it was when the 7/7 bombings happened in London, and we had a guy at work. We still got texts going around, the joke texts going around on phones, and there was a fellow at work. He told the joke that since the bombings in London, bus prices have went through the roof, and a taxi will cost you an arm and a leg. And some people laughed, some people didn't, and one guy turned around and goes, "You bastard, my brother was on one of them buses and I haven't heard from him." And he had this kid who told the joke and a flap all day, when he just told a complete lie just to wind him up, and he was in... Yeah. So that backfired on him. And I suppose that could lead you down the route of wondering, do you want to crack these jokes, and how do you react to people who do crack these jokes? And again, I don't think being precious about the jokes other people crack is going to do you personally, or should I say rather, I don't think me being precious about jokes other people crack is going to do me any favours. If I sit there and demand a certain level of privilege, if you want, for lack of a better term, on what humour people use around me, I don't think that makes me a better person, and I don't know about asking for this for others either. You can only control yourself. I say that a number of times in these videos. Is the only thing you can really control is yourself. You can't make the weather warmer. You've got to get used to the cold. I do recall also, I was talking about something similar to a friend of mine, about what humour, because obviously there's been a big stink about the likes of Dave Chappelle and, you know, look, just about every comedian on the planet really, or at least the good ones, who do crack the riskiest jokes possible. And just to go back to Chappelle, I mean, he is enjoying a great deal of free publicity at the moment, and quite frankly, I think he's laughing all the way to the bank. And more power to the man, to be honest. I was discussing it with this friend of mine, like I said, and I just said, what do you think of this risky humour? You know, is it good? Is it bad? Are you indifferent? And his exact words were, I'm not a fan of people who get outraged on the behalf of others. And that sat with me quite well. And that is more or less what I feel. Or at least how I approach feeling about it. I'm not going to sit there and say you shouldn't crack jokes about, you know, category A or category B. But then again, you could look at it and say, like, you crack jokes about being black. I used to know a kid when I was I say a kid, he was a full grown man. He's probably in his 70s by now. The guy at the TA, and he was a permanently stationed instructor, sergeant, so he's a regular army NCO who was attached to my TA, and he was black. And back in the 90s, in the area that I live in, that makes you very singular. And of course, black jokes flew, and he just didn't give a shit. I do recall he walked into the mess once, and somebody said to him, "Oh, I think you need to go and have another shower there, mate. You've left some cam cream on." And he turned around, big shitting grin, and went, "You're a racist cunt," and laughed. And then everybody else laughed, and that was the end of it. And I've got a mate who's obviously black, and he introduced himself as a nigger from the south once. It was hilarious because you thought he'd come in with a gun. Everybody sort of went, and this is the times we live in. It was pure comic gold to me. So just to try and wrap it up now, because I've been waffling for nearly 15 minutes. The crux of the matter is my life improved when I learned, perhaps the hard way, not to get precious about jokes. And I honestly think if more people could do that, then their lives would improve too. And I hope that the last 15 minutes hasn't been a complete waste of your time. So I'm not really sure what else to say. And have a good one.